We are very excited to have Ryan Swift on today's show. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
You are a bit of a unique guest for us because you are a newbie. Yes, that's
Who
right.
told you?
You are.
I think I did.
You've told the world. Ryan Swift of Glitter Grunge Greetings has only been dabbling in card making and mixed media for about a year. He started his YouTube channel a few months ago and is already making quite a name for himself. Ryan has that inexplicable it factor, which has his loyal, rapidly growing followers as well as the paper crafting industry as a whole simply enamored. That is the red carpet rollout introduction for Ryan Swift.
I love it. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, we are super excited to dive right in. And I normally don't start podcasts this way, but I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off if you don't mind.
Sure.
I want you to fill in the rest of this sentence or the blank.
Okay. Without
COVID, no crafting. And without crafting for Ryan Swift, no
sobriety. No
okay,
sobriety.
Well, tell us more. Tell us about
Sure.
this.
Yeah, I would have to say that, to kind of back up a little bit, I will be celebrating my 1.5 year soberversary, as I've been told it's called, on the 6th, which
this
week, which is insane now that I can actually start talking in years,
Yes, not months.
So not months, not days, not minutes. So I'm very grateful for that. But I honestly, what I'm most grateful for as a result, or because of it, is because of crafting and the entire process of it, from it being a cathartic creative outlet for me. And I think even more importantly is the community that has really wrapped their arms around me, and just held me close, to keep me accountable, but to support me too, especially during this last year where, I've always been saying, I'm sure, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to come out of this pandemic in the opposite position that I'm in. So, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And I refuse, it was a test of resiliency. And I said, if I can get through this, then bring it on. So, but yeah, because of crafting, because I needed something to dive into. I needed something that I could focus on while I was at home by myself. I am an introvert deep down, and I think that's something I had to admit to myself. In recovery, it's all about being honest. And when you're not in recovery, it's all about not so much being honest. So I flipped the script on that, and it all starts with me. And, I always told myself, oh, I'm this big extrovert, but I think it's sort of a facade that I put on, because I'm a ham, and my viewers know that. They know I'm a big goofball and love to be in the limelight until I don't. And then it's like, I want to retreat and be in my own little, cocoon. So, crafting has given me that, where I dived into it. It was a whole new ecosystem for me to learn about, to be inspired by. I mean, just from the supplies alone, the tools, the gadgets, the papers, the inks, it's endless. And even still to this day, I'm discovering new companies and new stuff. So it's kept me busy, and it started off as a distraction, an intentional one. And I was told by some quick and close friends that I made in the crafting industry that, hey, you're kind of a natural at this. And I said, well, thank you. I said, I do come from an artistic background of cake decorating. That is my bread and butter. That's my claim to fame in my hometown. And so I can see how that can translate a little bit, working with your hands and, Life Handmade, right? So, but it was something that I didn't have to worry about all the COVID stuff. I could be in my own safe bubble, away from people, but still have that connection to, famous YouTubers, even not famous YouTubers, that inspired me to kind of stretch my imagination and figure out what my style was, because as we all know, it's so vast.
Yeah.
In where you can take it, and I was just trying to find my groove. And so all that stuff really became a project that turned into a passion. And then that fueled everything.
Ongoing.
So,
yeah. So definitely it makes sense that you are innately creative and you come from a creative background, but you didn't pluck card making out of the ether. How? And you talked about supplies. Let's get us a real view as to like, how did it evolve into card making? Your mom gifted you with something in your recovery process, and what were those supplies, and how did that lead to
yes. This? She so I did some inpatient for a few months. So I was away from family, away from friends, and I needed things to occupy my time when we were in groups and in classes and stuff. And so my mom, she Amazoned me. She shipped me a set of colored pencils, and it was a tinned set. And man, was I the envy of the wing of the male block there. So it was that little gift. And of course, it didn't come by itself. There was coloring books there. And so, yeah, I was busy, and that's all I did. And actually, as I sit here in my craft/bedroom, I'm surrounded by all the pictures I colored there. I cut them out and put them on my wall, and they're just a constant, remember or sign of remembering for me, because I never want to forget that time, even though it was darkish at times. It helps me today, because I never want to regress.
I love that. And coloring is known as a form of therapy for sure. That is proven. There is data around it and research. So that is wonderful that your mom had that thought or intuition to send that to you. And I'm really thankful that it led to what you're doing now, and we can have you on this show and what you're doing now. And you started the YouTube channel about 6 months after you got super into card making. So your growing audience now in the thousands, what do you attribute that to?
I would say I found a YouTuber. Her name is Nancy Stamps, and she basically became my crafting godmother. She lives not too far, about 6 hours away from me, and I know that because I went and visited her in person over Thanksgiving break. But so she had this Facebook group, and she let me in. Of course, me being this man, and she was skeptical. I wasn't some bot or some creep, but I proved in my interaction on her channel that I was into it, and I was really looking up to her, and I loved her personality. And so she took me under her wing. And then within a couple months, I was an admin for her page, and it just became this relationship of, she's been doing this for over 20 years, started with scrapbooking, became a card maker, and she was with Stampin' Up! And all that stuff. So she had a lot of different experiences that she could kind of guide me. And she was like, "Did you ever hear of this man named Tim Holtz?" And I'm like, "No, never heard of him." I'm like, no, sorry. I know Duff, I know Buddy, from Cake Boss and Ace of
You're
Cakes.
Like, ask me those.
I'm like, I know all about them. And she's like, well, he's like, he's like the male version, he's like the card making version. And I'm like, oh, so boom, so she planted that seed, that Tim Holtz seed for me. And then once I found that I, adored him and everything he did, I was very soon nicknamed Tiny Tim in the group. And because that just sort of was became my aesthetic. I was kind of not mimicking, but I was mimicking because at that
You
point I didn't.
gravitated towards that
Yes.
styling.
So I was like, all right. So, but I think, so of course she has, all these followers that definitely saw in me what she saw. And so she shamelessly promoted me. And so I know I got a lot of people just from her. And we still are like the bestest friends. We're talking about, when's the next time I can come and visit. And anyways, so, but I think too, it's like, I think people, the YouTube for me is more than just the cards. It's more than just the crafting. It's become this virtual diary for me. It's now become an integrated part of my recovery, where I can go up there and talk about these small milestones. And every live that I do on my YouTube, I start with Melody Beattie's book, The Language of Letting Go, which is a very, it's a daily motivational meditation book. And, I'm not a religious person, but there's a ton of awesome advice in that book that even if you're not in recovery, I think resonates with you. So I think people appreciate that. They appreciate my honesty, my fearlessness for coming out to talk about a taboo about addiction, Yeah. And I think it's, but it just makes it concrete. It's just that next level of reinforcement in my recovery that, hey, you can't just say you're not anymore. Like, this is out there,
Right.
People, and for better or for worse, but at least I know if ever a day comes that I am struggling with my sobriety, that my world is rocked and I don't know who to reach out to. I know that I'll have the support
Absolutely.
of everyone that I have, that has touched me, and vice versa. So
absolutely. And it's a virtual community. And I love that even in a short time, you've been able to create in-person relationships, because that's something that we love about this industry, that you'll learn too as you grow in this industry, that we have real in-person connections with everyone. It's a very connected industry and it's wonderful. So I'm really thankful that you're already well on your way there.
Yes.
So let's talk Tim Holtz, Tiny Tim, all of this. So you saw his stuff. Everyone, he's got this amazing eclectic style. And is that where you learned about the term mixed media, or that was a thing in the paper crafting world, mixed media?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So as you know, probably many people are overwhelmed with the idea of mixed media. So coming from you, someone that is brand new, that's just kind of jumped in, what advice do you have for people that are curious about using mediums, or nervous, or just confused about mixed media?
I'd say start with things in your comfort zone, things that you think you can tackle, that seem attainable. I gravitated immediately towards inks because I saw the versatility in them. And for me, it was all about how much bang can I get for my buck? Because, I was entering a completely different universe, and, the startup cost can be whatever you want it to be.
It's true.
But for me, being an addict, always keep that in the back of your head. I wanted it all, and I wanted it now. So I would say, pick one or two, find your groove with those. And then, it's always good to be outside your comfort zone, because I think that's where you're going to find out what you really can do. It's boring for me to be in that comfort zone. It really is. And so the awesome thing about mixed media is that it's so much variation out there, and there's so many different medias that I know it can get overwhelming. A big advice too is, quality over quantity. It's really easy to watch some YouTube videos on the top 10 best things you need to get started. And, you know, I've watched the list. I've watched Jennifer McGuire's list every year, and, you know, and I've
plucked
it all, you know, and I don't know, just try to recreate what you like. You know, I love the mixed media grunge feel. And sometimes I look at some of Tim's stuff or some of his maker stuff and I'm like, oof, that's real grungy, you know? I'm like,
yeah.
But that's where I bring the glitter, you know, because I love it. And I love, and I kind of love that juxtaposition of the polar opposites, kind of bridging that gap. And I think with my bakery, it's sinful sweets. So it's like you got the sinful side, you got the sweet side. For me, it's like got the glitter and the grunge. And that has nothing to do with the fact that I am a Gemini. I promise you. But I am a Gemini. Little astrology there. So yes, so quality over quantity, you know, find out, you know, just don't think you have to get everything. But what you do get, make sure it's quality, because you're going to wind up spending a lot more money in the long run.
All right. I want to definitely give you the chance to answer my two favorite questions that I love to ask all of the guests on our Life Handmade podcast. And it has to do with handmade gifts, because we are all about living the life handmade. So Ryan, what is the most meaningful handmade project that you yourself have created? You may have given it away. You may still have it. What is that?
Well, I remember when I was in elementary school, we had this school project, and it was, I want to say it was like about like Alexander Graham Bell or something. It was some historical project, and we were asked to make a replica of something from that time. And I remember my mom and I went to the craft store, and we went and got this beautiful parchment paper that was like already a little distressed in color. It was like an ivory color. So to me at 6, I'm like, oh my God, it's so old, right?
Totally.
So we got some of that. We got a calligraphy pen, and I think we got some leather, like shoelaces, stuff like that, because I wanted to make a diary or like a journal, one that you would find. So I'll never forget, we used the stovetop to basically light the paper on fire.
Wow.
To create this really,
fun,
singed look. And, then I was in my, I must say I had really great penmanship from a really young age. I won all the awards. So nice. I even did my own, I tried doing my own calligraphy. And yeah, that really impacted me, because it was like, I think that was my first taste of distressing something. You know what I mean?
Totally. It lended itself to your glitter grunge. You're like, I can make it look old, something new. I can make look aged and old and have character. So the other part of this 2-part question is, what is the most meaningful handmade gift that you've ever received? You might still have it. I'd like to know what that is.
Sure. This one is, I wish I knew where it was, to be honest, but I had it up until I moved out of my mom's house, which was over 12 years ago, and I've moved several times since, so I'm sure it's somewhere. But anyways, it was my grandfather, my mom's dad. He was a carpenter, and in his spare time, like, that was his hobby, and his whole garage was he had every saw under the sun, and he got into making lamps. And it was, you might think of like a wooden lamp, and it's hard to envision, but it was basically just like this rectangle for like the
base,
the base part, and it was elongated, and then it had like this little it had like this lever. It was a lever that turned the switch on and off, and it was like this little table sized lamp. And he gave one to me, he gave one to my brother. Mine was all black, which was always my favorite color. So but I had that. And I would just switch out the
bulb,
the lampshade,
the shade.
As I grew.
Okay.
But I'd always keep the base. And so I had one that was Goosebumps for many years, longer than I care to admit, but then I
Switch out the shade.
I think around 16, I switched it up to, something a little bit more masculine.
Rock band or something, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I had that, and it was always, and honestly, I mean, my friends who knew what it was, they would probably poke fun at me, but for the most part, I mean, it was there, but he made it, and it just was.
I love that.
So.
And your friends would ask about it, and I think that one of the most special responses that you gave them, do you remember what that was? You're like, why do you still have this? What is this lamp?
Well, I just said it because it was my grandfather made it for me. Yeah.
I love that.
Just
as
simple.
a teenager, to be so proud and be like, well, because my grandfather made it.
Yeah.
I love that. Be sure to subscribe to the Life Handmade podcast in your favorite app and enjoy our other episodes there as well. Happiness is life handmade.